Hey everybody, I'm Ivonix, and this is a case of Distrust. I played the demo a couple weeks ago, but the full release is out now, and when I started the game, it dropped me basically right back at the end of the demo, where we're about to leave the bar, so I'm guessing, I guess I'll just continue from here, and make this my part 2, basically. Oh, yeah, this conversation again. I was heading up the stairs when Frankie called after me, so what are you good thinking to do? I don't remember what I picked the first time, since it's been a few weeks. Either Little Fanny or my sister. I'll just say my sister this time, regardless. I've been thinking about my sister and that letter she had written to me. In some ways, her life sounded appealing, but I knew I would never be satisfied with it. I steeled myself. I guess I'll take Connor Green's bait, I replied. I've got nothing better on the stove, and he might need the help. Something still stinks, though. Well, what's your plan? Frankie asked. The way I see it, I have 3 goals right now. So this is our recap. Green hired me for a job. Find the guy who wrote the letter. That's the basic part. But you want more? Asked Frankie. I nodded. Green's a shady character. I have to learn about him. Who is this guy? Dig into his past. I can't go back to him blind. And then there's something about his bootlegging. How'd Green get a connection like that? What's his source exactly? Squeezing that lemon might give me more juice. Sounds alright, he replied. So where are you off to? I've got 3 leads. That bootlegger's stable, who Green claims sent him the letter, the Tin Spoon Lounge, where I might learn more about Green's rum-running schemes, and Mrs. Green, who could give me more dirt on her husband. Frankie nodded in his approval. Well, if you're ever stuck, come back and see me. You can never solve anything without talking it over. Smiled and went up the stairs. Okay, so now we will get ourselves a cab. I believe I was gonna go to Green's house. That's where the demo ended the first time, so here, Green's house might contain more clues about his past. Yes, let's go. Let's go. I stepped in the taxi and rocked into a comfortable position on the back seat. I thought about starting a chat with the driver. Talk! Some weather, ain't it? He replied, with a southern drawl. It's San Francisco, I replied. Expect fog and bring a jacket. Wish I'd known that coming from Missouri. Maybe would have stayed on the river. There were always recent transplants to this city. Why'd you come here? Why'd you come here to San Francisco, I asked. Oh, you know, had dreams of adventure, dreams that my small town couldn't fill. Thought of myself as a regular Mark Twain. But you know, I recently heard a quote of his. The coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco. He laughed to himself. We talked for a while about San Francisco, its overcast climate, its treacherous hills, its lush green parks. Eventually we rolled to my destination, but before leaving I asked, did Mark Twain really say that about San Francisco? The driver smiled and shook his head. Nope, but if I tell you he did, at least you'll remember the quote that's mine. I chuckled and left the taxicab. Alright. The Greens' apartment was a section of an old Western Addition mansion. The owners had divided it for struggling families to rent after the 1906 fire. Once downtown had been rebuilt, people of means moved out of the area. Recent immigrants, mainly from Japan, rented most of the apartments in this part of town. I knocked on the front door, but didn't get a response. The latch was undone, so I pushed it open and stepped into the room. The apartment had a dense cloud. The room leaked of laudanum. It reeks of laudanum in here. Based on the smell, I imagined she'd had enough opium to knock out a horse. I found Mrs. Green slumped in her chair, eyes closed, head rocking slowly. Good heavens. That was fast. She just got home and hit the pipe, didn't she? Hello, Mrs. Green, I said loudly. She let out a long moan from the chair, then lifted her head, but failed to raise her eyelids. She tilted her head to the side, giggled, then let it loll back into place. I shook her lightly, and she moaned again, but said nothing more. Great, well, she's gonna be of no help. Bottle. Empty bottles were strewn around the apartment. I brought one to my nose and smelled the distinct aroma of laudanum, opium mixed with booze. Ah, a harsh tonic. Indeed. That plant doesn't look so good. A wilting plant was on the furthest table from the door. I could never keep plants alive either. Even as the petals fell, they were still a vibrant yellow. The ashtray on top of the smallest table was overflowing with spent cigarettes. Disgusting. The bottles on top of the round table were mostly empty. The gray trench coat was hanging in the doorway. It certainly looked identical to Lewis's. I searched the pockets and found no identifying marks. It might have been a different jacket, but its recent appearance was off-putting. Well, what do I do now? I mean, I'm guessing that, like, is leaving. Yeah, the frame was just warped enough to prevent the front door from completely closing. Good God. Yeah. Can I talk to it all now? Nope. Well, okay, this seems a bit fruitless. Since I've clicked on everything, but... Oh, no, it's that one. I opened the drawer of the backmost table, and it were 2 train tickets. I mumbled, St. Louis? To myself, but... St. Louis, to myself, but then came the cackling voice of Mrs. Green. Ha! Forget about moving, Connor. I won't budge. Her head was raised, but her eyelids still remained closed. I asked her further questions, but her head just lolled back to where it had been. There was nothing else she'd say. Great, so it seems like the Green, well, at least Mr. Green has been, planning on getting out of town. Okay. Nothing else she'll say? Nope. Nope, she is drugged out of her mind. Okay. Alright, I guess if that's all there was to click on, I'll go follow up on some of the other leads. Alright. How about we go to the Tin Spoon Lounge? The Tin Spoon Lounge was a speakeasy in North Beach run by Tiny Paul, the gangster that Green had put in with. I'd never been there. The mob keeps a tight lip on their own houses, but I figured it would be a good place to chase Green's bootlegging story. Go here. I gave my address and slouched in the back seat of the taxi cab. I thought a good way to pass the journey might be to chat with the driver. Of course, we will always chat with the driver. The driver asked if I had heard the new radio program, WLS Showboat. When I said I hadn't, he launched into praise about the floating palace of wonder. You see, there's this captain and his first and second mates, right? They go around sailing all the rivers of the U.S. Of course, they're terrible at running the ship, doing things like, he broke his sentence with a chuckle, hanging laundry on the paddle wheel. Can you imagine? He let out a belly laugh. Well, anyhow, they also play music from the different places. Twangs from the South, trumpets from Chicago, and they run it weekly. How about that? How about that? I replied, and stepped out of the taxicab at my destination. I left my driver still laughing to himself. Jovial. I opened the cab door in front of a North Beach warehouse with a wooden sign. The sign's text was too worn for me to decipher any of its English, but a small gray spoon was still visible below the letters. I rapped my knuckles twice over the large metal door. A panel just above my head slid sideways to reveal a pair of eyes. What's the password? The eyes looked me up and down, then just stared ahead. They were black and held no emotion. The room beyond was dimly lit, so I couldn't see much of their surrounding face. I cleared my throat, then a rumbling voice emerged from behind the door. Fill full your cups, feel no distress, at all our great thoughts shrinking less. I looked at the eyes, still unmoving. I understood. The doorman wanted a password. I thought I might have something in my notes that could help. Uh-oh. Wait, hang on, let me look at that one more time. Fill full your cups, feel no distress, it all our great thoughts shrinking less. But I don't have to, like, go to the other place to find the answer to that first. Evidence. Oh, no. Password. Doorman required a password to enter the Tin Spoon. I'm pretty sure I don't have the appropriate evidence or statements to get past the password, so... Stayed silent after a beat, small window slid shut with a thud. Okay, Prohibition was a joke in San Francisco, and most speakeasies would let just about anyone through the door, but the mob ones weren't as relaxed with their rules. I knew I wouldn't enter until I said the correct response. I wondered who I could ask about a speakeasy password. Yeah, so... I probably gotta go to one of the other areas and ask someone about it. Mrs. Green is probably still too high to ask her, but, Either the guy at Southern Coffee or let's go to the one place we haven't gone yet, which is Stable's Barbershop. Green had suspected Redstone's stable of sending him that letter. Apparently Stable owned a barber shop in the financial district. I figured there would be no harm in asking Stable about it directly. Alright. Stepped in, thought about starting a chat as usual, so let's talk. The driver was somewhere in his 50s, but drove like he'd soon be dead, bounding through the streets and honking at anyone in his way. Making good time, I commented. Bah, he exhaled, like an old ship captain. Congestion. All these motorists, and not one of them knows how to drive. Lunatics! The last word he shouted through the window. You see Life magazine, he continued, 13% increase in auto deaths this year to last, 14 the year before, most of them pedestrians. We crested another hill and my head bounced off the car's ceiling. Most folks run out of moonshine at home, then take the car to the speaky. Can't even walk and then think they can handle the road. The car's tires squealed as we rounded a corner. Well, not me, sister. This car leaps when I put my foot down, but you just gotta know what you're doing. We screeched to a halt at my destination. I stumbled out of the taxicab as quickly as possible, thankful to still have every limb. Barbershop was down an alley in the financial district opposite the red brick National Bank. Ding ding! The small bell above the door twinkled as I walked in. Ooh. Gonna look at everything in here. Stable's cabinet was similar to my own, but where mine was a dull gray metal, his was a deep red wood that looked heavy. The frame on the back wall contained a yellowed photograph of an old man. He had an authentic smile and held scissors in his left hand. The modern hydraulic barber chair had always seemed ostentatious to me, but this one, with its soft brown cushions and gold embroidery, was the most ornate I had ever seen. The two sides of the mirror's frame were cylindrical, painted blue, red, and white to look like barber's poles. They clashed with the otherwise elegant furnishings. The maroon leather chair looked comfortable. It seemed elaborate for a barbershop waiting chair. The hat rack was a deep mahogany engraved with gold lettering that read, Fraser & Co. Furnishings. Well, alright, I think that's all we can click on, so let's talk to the man. There was a tall man in the center of the room. He was wearing a flamboyant pink suit, tailored to accentuate his stature, with a maroon bow tie and pocket square. I gathered this was Redstone Stable. Hello, sir. The man turned to face me. He grinned, and his squinting blue eyes made the smile feel genuine. I must apologize, he said. We do not take walk-ins. I studied his face. I told him why I was here. I asked him for a chop. I studied his face. The wrinkles around his eyes indicated he was at least 40, but the rest of his skin was clean and smooth. He wore no hat and shaved his head completely bald. When combined with his smooth skin, it hinted at the look of a small turtle. His pink suit and maroon accessories only added to his eccentricity. He smiled and said, "How foolish of me. Of course you are here for information, Miss Malone." Well, how about a drink? That's how you know my name. I noted his smooth voice. How do you know my name, buddy? He hissed a few times and said, "That is a dull retort. You know you are not a standard detective. Please do not act as mundane as all the other sleuths." He sighed, but put a smile back on his face. "Yet perhaps you are here on a matter of interest. What is it you want?" Ask about notes. Yeah, let's see. Statements. Well, I guess first we'll just ask about Green's letter. Ask about the note. I pulled Green's note from my pocket and showed it to him, but didn't let him hold it. "Green tells me this letter is from you," I told him. "He doesn't like the threats." Stable lowered his head to study the note, then chuckled. His knowing grin returned to his face. "But this is a blackhand letter," he said, flourishing a hand towards the paper. "Have you ever seen a blackhand letter, Miss Malone?" I confessed I hadn't. "Exactly," he said. "You should ring your friend Shipman at the station and ask what it means." I think a blackhand letter means the mob is gonna come and fucking kill you. Sam Shipman had been one of my uncle's regular partners in the vice rackets. I wondered what Shipman could have to do with Green's case. Stable seemed to think that he had a lot to do with it. I pocketed the letter and continued with my questions, but I made a note to stop by police headquarters and see Shipman. "Well, Miss Malone," he smiled, "will there be anything else?" Yeah, why does Green suspect you, do you think? Green claims you bootleg, I stated bluntly. His grin didn't waver in his response. Would you hang me on Connor Green's claims? I may partake in some gambling, and I may have a talent for it, but it is nothing illegal, I assure you. And you know nothing about Green's own bootlegging, I asked. Stable shook his head. I doubted he would ever answer a question straight. Well, Miss Malone, anything else? Let's see if there's anything else to ask him about. How do I get into the tin spoon? He'll know, right? I showed him something in my notes. No information. Okay. Definitely not the person to ask about that. Can I ask about just the various things in the barbershop? What's up with the waiting chair? I nodded to his furniture. Elegant trappings for a barber. Math was never my strong subject, but I can't see a barber making enough for all of this. He smiled. Yes, I have other methods of procuring wealth, but I do not engage in illicit activities, if that is your implication. Funny, alright. Let's just ask about other things in the barbershop. Where'd you get the hat rack? Well, obviously. I nodded again. Stable wasn't ready to admit where his wealth came from. Okay. What's in the cabinet, buddy? Or no, let's ask about the picture frame. Who's the man in the picture? Pointing to the picture frame on the wall. What, that the old man? I asked. Stable turned to look at the photograph. No, that is my grandfather, taken near the end of his life. Why did you hang it in here? This store was formerly owned by my grandfather. He started with humble beginnings. My Zaid taught me the meaning of hard work and dedication. I am humbled by reminders of him. Huh. Alright. That got me an achievement, interestingly enough. What is in your cabinet? Okay, yeah, he just doesn't want to say anything about his furniture. Take one more look through his notes. Will he say anything else about Green's bootlegging scheme? Nope. Not any knowledge of that type of business. Okay, I think we're done here at least for now. Turn back to the barbershop. Goodbye, sir. Alright, so now we can go to the police station. That's a new area. We still don't know the password. I kind of want to go to Green... yeah, let's run back to Green's house really quick to see if, might get something useful from searching the house. Yeah, okay. So I might not be able to get the password out of her. But it's worth a try, so we'll just do it anyway really quick. And have another conversation. Glanced towards the driver and noticed the right side of his face was covered by a tin plate, painted to match his light skin tone. Set in the plate was a glass eye. Oh, so that's like that sounds like a description almost of or like a nod maybe to Richard Harlow from Boardwalk Empire. Yeah, ask about his disfigurement. He gave a rough grunt and said, "The war." I stayed silent for a moment, and he added, "Lys, near Flanders." "Which division?" I pressed. 69th Infantry, he replied. Again, after a pause, he continued. "The Hun came at us quick, don't remember much." He tapped his faceplate and said, "Early casualty." "Was that your only battle?" I asked. He gave a short grunt and nodded. "Wish it wasn't. Many friends stayed at the front." We rolled to my destination. He turned to me and smiled. "Thanks for talking. Most won't look at me." I smiled back and stepped out of the taxicab. Alright, let's go back inside, see if we can ask her about the password, maybe. Ah, no! Because yeah, I've got to be able to get into that, like, conversational option. But it's not here. So, yeah, as I thought. Coming here was fruitless. We'll leave. Alright, let's go to the police station then. I always dreaded visiting the PD after I'd flown the coop, and I was in no mood right now. But if Shipman did know something about Green's note, I had to chase it up. Here we go. I waved down a taxi cab and was on my way. I thought I might talk with the driver to pass the time. Sure. Again. When the driver turned to ask where I wanted to go, I saw his striking blue eyes looked years younger than the graying temples beneath his wool cap. I was curious about his history. I struck up a conversation, which led to his past life. Ever hear of the Suicide Club, he asked. I admitted I hadn't. Bob the Goat coined that phrase. Poor guy ate a runaway for his last meal. War pilots, I asked. Half right. We was mail carriers. Uncle Sam was training us for the military. Shame so few made it. I asked why he'd left. Rumor said the average pilot lasted 900 hours, likely not far off. Flying with no lights, no emergency landing, barely a weather report, never a parachute. What do they expect? Glad you're driving a taxi cab now? I asked as we pulled up to my destination. My wife is, but I miss flying every day. He turned to tip his cap, and I saw the sparkle in his eyes. I thanked him for the ride and left the car. And here we are at the police station. The North Beach Station was SFPD headquarters, also poetically baptized the Hall of Justice. The building dominated the corner of Kearny and Washington in Chinatown. Rebuilt after the 1906 earthquake, I thought it looked even more sour than it had before. Oh. I strode to the young bobbed girl behind the large oak desk. She must have been new because we shared no recognition of one another. I asked for Shipman, and she motioned me to a chair as she pressed a pearl button. I sat down and she disappeared through a frosted door. I rolled another cigarette to pass the time. Between puffs I thought about my history at the department. I imagine the station captain would have been furious had he known I was there. I did, after all, break a tumbler with the help of another officer's temple. That had been my last day on the force. It wasn't long before Shipman walked out of the frosted door. Samuel Shipman smiled when he saw me. He was tall and tanned. He had always been helpful to me in my days on the force. Working closely with Lewis, he'd acquired the habit of bouncing theories my way. He judged officers purely on results, and because of that, he was one of my few fans. We exchanged brief pleasantries before he said, "Wouldn't come here for glad-handing." He had a habit of removing the subject from his sentences. "What needs doing?" I explained my case to him. He scoffed when I mentioned Connor Green. Working for that pinhead? Got a good mind to run him up a flagpole. I just need to know about this letter. I handed him the note Green had given me and explained its context. After looking it over, Shipman tried to stifle a laugh. "Complete bunk," he said. "See this symbol on the corner? Mark of the Black Hand Gang. Except Black Hand letters are always ransom letters, not threats. No foothold on this coast anyhow. Never been one in California." So the letter's a fake? Shipman nodded. Someone's trying to imitate the Black Hand. I grunted a sigh and noted what he said. "Don't know if Green is getting one over you," he said, "or if someone else is pulling Green's leg, but having more dirt on the man couldn't hurt, especially if he's your client." I agreed. "I've been trying to dig through his past. You got any bunk on him?" Shipman shook his head. "No, from Oakland is all I know, but I can do some more digging." I thanked him for that. "Under a pile of ice, though. Might take me a while. Why don't I telephone when I find something?" I had no office where I could receive messages, but I dreaded returning to the station. I told him to call Southern Coffee. "Just leave anything with Franklin Conway," I instructed. He said that was all right. We traded goodbyes, and I went back to the station's entrance. Now I knew the letter was fake, and Shipman was looking into Green's past for me. I just needed to chase up the bootlegging lead. I stepped on into the street and thought about where to go.